welcome back. So as you guys read by the title, today I'm going to be sharing my pregnancy story. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Diana, and this is baby Jacob. Yes. He's playing with his toys right now, so I'm going to let him play while I do the video. So basically, just jumping right into the story. My husband and I had found out I was pregnant when I was 5 weeks along. We found out I was pregnant because I had missed my period. I missed my period in September of last year, and his first initial thought was to go and take a pregnancy test, and I was like, you know what, you're right. So we went and we bought a pregnancy test. He took me out to eat to get some pizza at this pizzeria in Old Town Monrovia. And I was supposed to come home and take it and then tell him what the results were, but I just couldn't wait to take it. So I ended up taking the test in the restroom at the pizzeria. I found out I was pregnant there. And as soon as I saw that it was positive, I started crying. I was bawling. And I just couldn't believe that I was pregnant. I was just like, oh my god, like I'm pregnant. And so I was just crying, and I was in the restroom for about 15 minutes. My husband, he texted me and he was like, hey, are you okay? And so I went outside, and as soon as I saw his face, I just started crying again. I dropped down to my knees and I started crying, and he was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Like, what's the results? And then I just gave him the pregnancy test, and he saw that it was positive, and he picked me up and he was like, don't cry, like, it's okay. And I saw that he was tearing up himself, and it takes a lot for him to tear up, and I was like, oh my god, like, it was just like a million things going through my head. And he was like, don't cry, this is good, this is a blessing from God, like, don't see it as bad. Me and you are strong. We're gonna be able to get past this and do this together. And I was like, okay, that helped me a little bit more, you know, it reassured me more, and I was like, okay. And so then that night, after getting the pizza, he was supposed to take me home because I was supposed to take the test at home. But I couldn't, like, go home, and, like, I just wanted to stay with him and talk about everything, talk about the future, like, what's gonna happen and stuff like that. So we ended up talking all night together, and when I came home, it still hadn't sunk in the fact that I was pregnant. And then we let maybe, actually the next day I made an appointment with my doctor. And I went to the appointment, and they ordered some blood work to be done to draw some blood to confirm that I was pregnant. And about a week after that appointment, the results came in saying that, yeah, the confirmation that I was pregnant, and I was actually 5 weeks along. My due date was supposed to be May 25th. And so after we confirmed that I was pregnant, the step next came telling our parents. And I remember my husband asking me, like, well, how's your mom going to take it? And I told him, I know my mom, like, she'll need a couple, like, minutes, or she'll need some time to herself to process it, accept it, and then after it's sunk in, then she's going to be like, okay, like, what's our game plan? What are we going to do? Like, everybody get over it. It is what it is. You know, she's pregnant, and I knew she was going to react like that. And so, when the time came around to tell my mom, that's how she reacted. The initial plan was that my husband and I were gonna tell my mom together, but I just couldn't wait to tell my mom because I tell my mom everything. So I couldn't wait to tell my mom. And I ended up telling her by myself one day, just randomly. I was like, Mom, can I come over? And she was like, yeah, and I went over. And my mom also has this thing, like, where she just guesses what it is, like, even before you tell her, like, she can just read it off of your facial expression. And so she read it off my facial expression. She was like, well, what, are you pregnant? And I stood quiet, and she didn't believe me in the beginning because I'm always messing with her. I'm always, like, pulling pranks on her and stuff like that. But she knew I was being serious this time because I started crying, and she was like, oh my god, like, you're pregnant. And this was, like, completely, like, coincidence, but I actually ended up telling her on a day that she was not feeling good. She was sick, like, with regular common colds. And so when I told her, she just didn't have the energy to, like, say anything. So she was like, okay, just go back home, we're gonna talk tomorrow. And I was like, okay. So I went back the next day, and since she had a whole day to, like, think about it and everything, she was, like, really simmered down and stuff. And so she basically was like, alright, like, what's your game plan? What are you gonna do? And I told her, I was like, well, for sure the baby's staying. Like, I'm not gonna abort it. I'm not gonna give it up for adoption. Like, this is mine and Jacob's baby. And she was like, yeah, of course, okay. And then she was like, well, what's your plan? Like, do you guys need help doing anything? Like, do you need me and stuff like that? So she was pretty accepting, pretty supportive, like, right off the bat and stuff. Of course she was disappointed because I am extremely young. You know, this isn't what she had planned for me. But, I mean, like how she is, she says, like, it is what it is, and we have to accept it, and we, instead of just dwelling on the, oh my god, I can't believe this, it's, you know, let's start making a plan. And so next came telling Jacob's parents. And his parents were a little bit more hard because his parents and my parents are very different. They were a lot more direct and opinionated. But at the end, once they came to accept everything, they were just like my mom, just extremely supportive, and they're like, okay, what are you guys going to do? What's your game plan? Do you guys need us to help you? And stuff like that. So everything went pretty good. Telling the parents were, I think, in my opinion, probably the hardest at that time because we didn't know how they were going to react. Baby Jacob is the first grandbaby, so we didn't know if they were gonna like be happy or like be disappointed and stuff like that. It was a mixture of both. They were both really happy and both really, like I said, of course I didn't want this to happen to us and stuff like that so early and stuff. But everybody accepted it. Everybody got over it. And then after that, the pregnancy was pretty easy. I started getting like the morning sickness, which is like really bad. It hit me like pretty hard. I would throw up like even before I even got to eat anything in the morning. Like I would just still throw up. And the only thing that I would be able to eat throughout my entire pregnancy without like throwing up was tacos, like tacos de asada. I would always be able to eat that and drenched with lemon. Like that's the only thing the baby would let me keep down, like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So like I would send my husband on like so many taco runs and stuff because that's all I wanted to eat. But other than that, I didn't really crave anything or nothing really stayed down. I had to be really careful on what I ate because I had to think about it like, okay, this tastes good now, but like how would it be when I throw up? Like that's how you have to think. Like, especially milk, like, when I was going through my morning sickness, I really tried to, like, not really eat milk or drink milk very much, because when I would throw it up, you know, it would be, like, really gross. So, like, that's how I would have to think, like, okay, how would it be when it comes back up? But, and at that time, before I was pregnant and while I was pregnant, I was actually working at Vons, and, it was good. It was a good job. I was just, like, a regular checker, a cashier in the front. And before I was pregnant, they would once in a while like send me on cart runs, like if they needed the carts in the parking lot to be like picked up and stuff, or like brought back to the front. So I would go and do that. And once we found that I was pregnant, I gave them a doctor's note telling them that I couldn't push, pull, or lift anything over 15 pounds because the first 3 months are extremely critical for a pregnant woman, where they can lose a baby extremely easily. Especially if you push, pull, or lift anything over 15 pounds. So I had to be like really careful about that. But they didn't really respect the fact that I was pregnant. They would still send me on cart runs and tell me like, oh, well, it's in your job description, so you have to do it and stuff like that. And it's not that I was scared to say no. It's just like, I had only been working there for like 4 or 5 months. So I was like, you know what, like, I don't want to end up, like, getting in trouble, so I'm just going to go do it. I'll just push a little bit. But all that pushing actually ended up doing, like, damage to the baby. And, it actually ended up, like, I was in the shower one day getting ready for work and stuff. And I started bleeding, like, and not just, like, spotting. I was, like, massive bleeding. And so I knew I was having a miscarriage. And I knew it was because I was stupid enough to go and push carts and stuff. And so I called my husband and I was like, you need to come and get me, and we need to go to the ER because I'm bleeding. I'm not supposed to be bleeding. And so we went to the ER, and the doctors there even told me, like, well, what have you been doing? Like, you're not supposed to be bleeding. And I told them honestly, like, I've been pushing carts from work and stuff like that. Like, they make me go on cart runs, and they told me, like, speak up, tell them that you can't do it. And I told them, I was like, I have told them that I can't do it, but they tell me that I have to do it, or else, like, I'll get a write-up or I'll get suspended or something. And so luckily they were able to stop the miscarriage. They gave me an injection in my arm, and they were like helping me down there and stuff, like to keep the baby in. So luckily the baby was good. He was fine, thank God. And after that, he gave me another doctor's note, and he was like, here, take this back to your managers and tell them that you can't push, pull, or lift anything over 15 pounds. And so I went back and I gave them the note. I did have to take a week off of work, so I took a week off of work, and then once I went back, I gave them the note. And they respected it for about like a week, week and a half, and then after that, they were sending me on cart runs again. And I just remember like completely going off, and I was like, you know what, like, I put my baby in danger once already. I was stupid enough to do it the first time. I'm not going to do it again. I almost lost him because of you guys. You guys don't respect the fact that I'm pregnant. If you guys know you guys are gonna be short staffed, and you guys know you guys are gonna need people to come and push carts, then why don't you guys be smart enough to go, or like to schedule more people? And they just weren't listening, telling me that I had to do it, or I would get a write-up, or get suspended, or I would get in trouble and stuff like that. So my husband and I decided that it would be better for me to just quit work until I had the baby. So I ended up quitting on Thanksgiving of last year, on the 24th of November last year. That was my last day of work. And after that, I didn't work. My main priority was just the baby. And after that, the pregnancy was pretty easy. In the beginning, you weren't really able to tell my belly. Like, you literally couldn't tell anything. My belly didn't pop until it was, till I was 5 going on to 6 months. Closer to 6 months, yeah. 5 going on to 6 months. So my belly finally popped, and everybody was actually able to tell that I was pregnant. Like, at a point in time, my mom was even like, are you really pregnant? Because, like, I can't see your belly. And you really weren't able to tell my belly, like, at all. And so after my belly popped, everyone was like, oh, yeah, you're pregnant. Like, even when we went to the grocery store, like, people would see us and, like, stare at me and my husband, and, like, we would hear, like, little whispers and stuff, because we are young, we're, you know, and then seeing my belly, they're like, oh my God, you know? So that's, like, little stuff you have to deal with. But honestly, I didn't really mind, because I was like, you're not the one that's going to be waking up at night or changing his diaper or anything, so it doesn't matter what you think. So, just having to ignore that kind of stuff. And then, closer to my due date, in the beginning, I would only see my OB every 4 weeks, and then once I hit 8 months, I started seeing her every 2 weeks, and then once I hit 9 months, I would see her every week. So when I was 8 months and we would start seeing her every 2 weeks, we would see, like, the development of the baby more and more and stuff like that. We would see him growing and stuff. So we were, around 8 months, we started getting, like, more anxious, more like, oh my God, like, he's coming, and stuff like that. And once we got to 9 months, we started seeing her every single week. And just seeing the baby grow, we're just like, oh my God. And honestly, I still couldn't believe that my body was able to, like, create just, like, this tiny little baby. And, so around 9 months, that's when I started to, like, really get into the nesting phase. I was with my big belly on a ladder, like, cleaning walls, cleaning the ceilings, emptying out cabinets and reorganizing them, and repacking and repacking our hospital bags. And, like, I was just trying to clean stuff that was, like, already clean. Like, I was trying to, like, double clean it and stuff like that. So then, once we actually got to my due date, I had no symptoms. I was like, I don't know if he's gonna come today or something. So after that, we started going to the hospital that I was gonna give birth in, and they started doing NST testing on my belly just to monitor, like, check the baby, make sure that he's okay and everything. And eventually, he ended up getting really, really big. They're telling me, like, if you let him, since you're past your due date, if you continue to let him just grow in there, soon he'll be too big where you're not going to be able to push him out. We're most likely going to have to give you a C-section. And I was like, you know what? I don't want a C-section. So they told me, like, okay, do you want to get induced, or do you just want to see how it plays out? And I decided to end up getting induced because I wanted to try and have him naturally, not have a C-section. So I ended up going in the hospital May 29th, 4 days after my due date. So I got induced. They gave me Pitocin, and my labor started. I went the first 10 hours with the contractions without getting an epidural because I tried my my best, my hardest to not get an epidural. But eventually I tapped out 10 hours into it. I was like, you know what, I need it. So then they ended up giving me the epidural, and then the bad thing is that I was opening like really slow, so I was dilating like super slow. And so then I would open a centimeter like every like 3-4 hours. So I was in labor for 34 hours. It was a 34-hour. I was 34 hours long. So once I had reached 8 centimeters, the doctor came in and she did like, no, sorry, 7 centimeters. The doctor came in and she was like doing her regular like checks and stuff on me, and she was seeing how much dilated I was, and she said that I was 7 centimeters open. And while she was checking me, she had my water had actually popped, and so I actually ended up jumping from 7 centimeters to 10 right away. And she was like, "Oh, you're ready to push," and I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, you're ready to push already." And I was like, okay. And so it took them about like an hour to like set everything up for me to start pushing and stuff, like to have everything ready for when the baby comes and stuff like that. And so by then the epidural had actually worn off, and they told me every single contraction, and every contraction starts to push, and it's okay. So once I would get a contraction, I would start pushing, and at a point in time I felt like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. Like, it's hard. It's really hard. And in my stomach I would feel like him pushing too, like with his legs and like with his head and stuff like that. And my husband told me like, come on, the baby's doing his job, you need to do your job. And I was like, okay. So I was like pushing. My husband, by the way, was an extremely supportive, he was so supportive and extremely strong support system. And I think what scared him the most, or scared everybody the most, is the fact that in my family, us women, we suffer from hemorrhage. So while I was giving birth, I actually suffered from a hemorrhage, and so I was bleeding like crazy bleeding. And when someone suffers from hemorrhage, they have a bag in the bottom of you where it shows like how much blood you've lost and stuff, and there's like a certain amount of blood that you lose before you need a blood transfusion. And I was 3 ounces away from needing a blood transfusion, so I had lost like a lot of blood. And doing that, like losing blood and trying to push at the same time, I felt so weak. Like, I felt like I couldn't do it. And I just remember my husband telling me like, come on, his head's almost out. And I was like, okay. So I pushed and finally his head came out. And then after his head, the shoulders were the hardest part. So as soon as you get the shoulders out, everything else is so easy. So I was trying my best, like giving all my strength just to get his shoulders out. And once I got his shoulders out, everything just like slid out. And honestly, I'm going to be really honest, after that, everything's extremely fuzzy to me because I actually ended up passing out. So yeah, I passed out, and then I just remember waking up about an hour later, and all the nurses, everybody was gone, and it was just my husband and the baby, and my husband was holding the baby. And I woke up and I was like, where's everyone? And then he was like, everybody left, you've been asleep for about an hour. And I was like, oh really? And he was like, yeah. So after I woke up, the nurses came in and they were like, okay, we're going to send you to the recovery room now. And I was like, okay. So they sent us to the recovery room. And the first thing, once we got there, the first thing I wanted to do was just hold the baby. I wanted to hold the baby. And so once I held the baby, I remember he grabbed my finger and he held it so tight. And I was like, oh my God. And my husband told me that while I was sleeping and he was holding the baby had actually smiled at him. And I was like, oh my God, no, I missed it because I was sleeping. And so then after that, he's having so much fun. So then after that, a lot of people came in, like family members and everything, to come visit and see the baby and stuff like that. We ended up getting released from the hospital. I gave birth on a Wednesday on the 31st of May, and then I got released that week Friday. So we stayed in the hospital for like a day and a half or like 2 days. So when we got released and we came back home, and then coming back home, the baby was like asleep in his car seat, and then we took him out of his car seat, put him in his crib, and I just remember seeing such a big crib for like a little baby, and I was like, oh my God, like, and me and my husband still couldn't believe that he was here, because like while I was pregnant, we were always like, oh, he'll be here soon, you know, like the baby's coming, like, oh, or I can't wait till he's here and stuff like that. And so once he was actually here, like, I think we were just like in complete disbelief that me and him had actually made a baby. and he was just so peaceful, so sound asleep. And at a point in time we were like, you know what, how are we gonna do this? Like how are we gonna be parents? Like, we don't know what to do and stuff like that. But luckily we had our parents, both our parents, to be there for us. And whenever we had questions, just go to them and ask them, and they would always tell us what to do and help us and be there for us and stuff like that. So in the beginning it was really hard because like we didn't know what to do. Like, I had experience with like kids because of my siblings, like when I would babysit and stuff like that, but like not newborn baby, you know, and like wake up at night and stuff like that. So doing that, like, really it was new to us. And so then eventually we ended up getting eventually you get the hang of it. And I think what really helped me is the fact that while I was pregnant, I would see other stories, like pregnancy stories or like teen mom stories and stuff like that on YouTube, and seeing them, how they are, like, and they're just like me. They're like, you know what, we didn't know what to do in the beginning, or I didn't know how to be a mom and stuff like that. And eventually, like, it just happens. Like Mother Nature, not Mother Nature, but like the nurture of like a woman just comes out, and you just end up getting the hang of it. And seeing them, I was like, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it. Because at a point in time, I was like, I'm not fit to be a mom. Like, I can't do it. And I think just seeing videos like that, like, really showed me, like, you know what, like, I can do it. So I really hope that this video does that for someone, because a lot of the videos I watched really hit home and I was able to relate. So I'm hoping that this video helps out with someone that's maybe going through the same thing I'm going. And honestly, it's just like crazy thinking about it, because it still feels like just yesterday I was at the hospital pushing him out, and now like 5.5 months later I have this big baby. And he's just so full of energy. He's already learned to crawl, to sit up by himself. Guys, actually last night he actually said mama. I was in the kitchen, I was cooking, my husband was helping me so that we can eat dinner. And we had him in his crib, and he wanted me to go and grab him, so he started like getting fussy and crying, and then all of a sudden he yells out, mama. And I was like, what? And so I went over there, I dropped what I was doing, I went over there and I was like, what'd you say? And then he was like, mama. And I was like, what? So I picked him up out of his crib and I like hugged him, because I was like, oh my god, like, he just said mama. And then I ended up giving him to my husband. I gave him to my husband, and I was like, you know what, like, what if it was just like an accident, you know? And so I gave him to my husband, and even while my husband was holding him, he was like, mama. And I was like, oh my god, like, he's saying mama. So it's just crazy how much time has gone by. Like I said, it just feels like just yesterday I was in the hospital, and now he's over here like saying mama. So honestly, for anyone that's maybe going through this or who is pregnant right now, honestly, eventually you get the hang of it. In the beginning it is hard, I'm not gonna lie, but then, like I said, you just get the hang of it, and you're just gonna enjoy every single moment, every single milestone, and you're just gonna be happy the fact that you have a baby. So that's my pregnancy story. It's not like a big, how do I say it? Other people have more exciting pregnancy stories than I do, than my story, but I really hope that this helps someone, like many stories helped me. So you guys, make sure you guys like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join the family. We have a lot of love to give. The baby's getting fussy because he wants me to join him playing with his toys. So I'll see you guys on Friday, okay? I love you guys.